meetup very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. All right. Our next speaker is also a CNCF ambassador, but who's in a different part of the world, who's also in the same part of the world as where our wonderful visual learning coordinator, Nelly, is creating amazing artwork as we speak. You can check out all the action on Twitter. Remember, keep the questions coming. We got Mario. Mario, what are we going to hear about today?
Well, today I'm going to be talking about selling cloud native internally in your organization, to your team, to the wider engineering org. How do you bring something in that no one knows anything about and show them how great it can be? So thank you so much, Bart. I'm really excited today. This is really fun. I literally rolled out of bed about maybe 27 minutes ago. So we're going to see how this goes. You guys are getting the best version of me. Absolutely. So you can visit my personal website, marioloria.dev, to learn more about me. But for short, I am a SRE, DevOps, kind of architect, engineering strategy, very Kubernetes focused cloud native person. I'm ambassador, and welcome to Bart and Kunal, who just joined as well. I love doing a lot in the community. I love going to KubeCons. I've helped staff the Contributor Summit and do various other things around town, if you will. I love Kubernetes. I love infrastructure. I love networking. I love cloud. Those are kind of passionate about resilient infrastructure, auto scaling, and everything that goes with it. But I wanted to shift gears today and talk a little bit about something that's maybe more on the soft skills side of the world, where you have this magical idea, or you and a few other people are like, this makes sense. And how do you sell that to the rest of your organization? This isn't just about your leader. This isn't just about getting a yes. So let's get started. And I have some really simple slides here, just some key things that I want to talk through. So one of the first things that I want people to understand is articulating value in any sort of company is incredibly difficult. Just because the company hired you doesn't mean that everything you say is going to be exactly what they are going to take as the best option right now. And that's normal. That's exactly kind of how it should be, right? It shouldn't necessarily be easy. And I think it's important that it is difficult. The reason for this is that you might have many great ideas, but a lot of the time those ideas don't really synthesize to something the business is really ready to do yet, or something the business actually cares about. So I think one of the big thing is putting yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know anything about community, doesn't know anything about cloud native, doesn't know anything about open source. And communicating via just in a meeting, vocally saying we should do X isn't enough. There's maybe some implied value there, but that's not tangible. That's not concrete for leaders and other people around you to really understand what problem we're actually going to solve and how this is going to change the dynamic of the company as we move forward and try to do amazing things, right? And I think I have a line here. You have to, educate, reinforce, exude confidence while it's marketing and selling your solution. So I'm not saying be a cold caller like a traditional salesman, but you have to be the advocate and you have to be the champion inside of your organization for whatever it is that you are trying to bring to the table. And so number two, I kind of talk about zooming out. And I think the big part of achieving that, of articulating that value is pretend your audience is starting at zero. Don't even consider what the tool or the solution is yet. Don't even look at that. Look at and start to define the scale of the problem. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And a lot of the times, different companies, different sizes, different autonomy, different sorts of teams. You might be in a case where it just makes sense. Like you can just start playing with something and bring it to the table, and it's in the flow of something you're trying to solve already, and it's easy to pick up, and everyone else is like, yeah, this makes sense. This might be something as simple as like a very basic local development tool, or it might be something some simple script that checks your backups or something like that, right? But for larger initiatives, like say we want to go and start using Linkerd, or we want to adopt Cloudflare, or we want to use EKS instead of COPS. These are massive undertakings for a company. I mean, if it requires an engineer to spend more than a week on it, it's probably a pretty big deal. And again, depending on the size of your company. So the first part here is to really zoom out and figure out what is the organization trying to achieve, and how does what I'm bringing to the table flow into solving the challenges for achieving that thing and bringing us up to the next level. And hopefully your company has a relatively clear vision and mission, and your team likewise knows what the things are that it needs to do to represent the organization, to support the systems and the tooling and the developers and whatever it might be. So define the scale of the problem. Define why it's a problem. Why should we care about this right now? Again, imagine someone who's looking at this from zero. And then why this solution involves whatever you're trying to bring, tools, methods, process. Why does that make sense? And there's a quote from West Wing. I'm a huge West Wing fan, but there's a quote when he's playing chess with Rob Lowe in one of the episodes where they go back and forth, and Martin Sheen is saying, "See the whole board." Right? Zoom out, see the whole board in the scheme of everything we are trying to do as a company, as an organization in our space, whatever that space is. What does it mean to our customers, to our shareholders, to whatever the mission is that we are trying to achieve? That is how you have to think about this. So you have to kind of zoom out from the, oh my gosh, EKS-CTL is the greatest thing ever. It's going to solve all these problems. That's in your mind. That's in your terminal, right? You have to zoom out and communicate that in threads that are meaningful upstream, right? And I use my hands because I'm Italian, so I'm sorry, but deal with it. Let's move forward. Hopefully that makes some sense, and I look forward to your questions and comments and concerns. So bring the data. So I'm thinking in my mind here, like maybe you're writing a proposal or you're communicating upstream somehow, right? Ideally maybe some sort of problem statement or manifesto or whatever it might be, whatever works for your company. I think it's really important that you bring not just the quantitative, right? Not just the metrics. I mean, the metrics are incredibly important, but the qualitative evidence to the forefront. The worth of your solution is very much going to be weighted beyond just what you're saying or what seems great in the industry, but based on the metrics of how that implementation is going to provide dividends for the company, how it is going to solve that challenge, not just for you as an engineer, but because you as an engineer will be able to work faster, things will be more performant, there will be resilience, there will be auto scaling. Because of all of that, the company will benefit. So showing how that will actually work is incredibly important. And all of this will, providing the worth of the total solution, right, will aid in making your case, right? So if you say, I've got this solution and it's 1/8 of the actual total problem, maybe you didn't realize that, maybe other people are looking at it a different way. I think a lot of this is you have to interview your coworkers. You have to interview the people that might be the decision makers, the people that are on your team. You really have to understand their mental mindset of what you're working on right now, and then say, okay, does what I'm bringing to the table actually fit in there where they will see the value? And if it really doesn't, then maybe it's just not the time, or maybe it's not the right solution, right? Maybe you're getting excited about something that's in alpha state, but your company is very security focused, very performance focused, and long-term stability focused, right? And that's important to your customers. And you just can't deal with that. And there's other solutions out there, right? It's really difficult. I know in the open source world, of course. Is this product or project production ready, right? How do I measure the value? And I think with that, you really have to do a POC. You really have to start playing with this locally. You have to actually just move forward, find some time, and prove out what you're doing. And so in previous projects, I remember we implemented cluster auto scaling when it really wasn't really dialed in yet. And I remember looking at it and saying, I don't know about this. And my leader actually said, I'm going to give you some time here to actually investigate, play around with, because this will really, really solve a lot of our challenges. And I agreed. And I actually wasn't I didn't think it was going to work. And I started playing for a little while and started playing in a lower environment, a playground cluster. And lo and behold, it wasn't perfect. It took a little bit of massaging, but I made it work, and I made it work for us. And I don't know how far it was along at that time, but I think the core thing here is having something to show, saying, no, I actually already ran this in a parallel environment, if you will, or something that really looks like what we are running live, whether that's a dev or staging cluster, production cluster, ideally a production cluster. Doing just that is huge, because it shows that you have the tenacity to spend your time, right, to build out a proof of concept, to build something, and you weren't asked. It wasn't a card in Jira, right? It wasn't something on your path of work that you're supposed to be working on 100% of the time. You took your time to do that. That's huge. That's going to be probably 60 to 80% of someone saying, wow, they took the initiative, they spent some time, and they made this happen, and they have something to show for it that solves the problem, right? That solves the problem and shows the value clearly. for what we're trying to do. And it might be a little raw. It's not going to look beautiful or perfect or work the first time. And demos, as we all know, go terribly. But something that my team did was we had demos every Friday. Like that was just it was built in to the schedule, and so everyone felt more enthused and felt more confident that they could kind of bring something to the table, and people were willing to see it because there was something already on the schedule there that was Friday demos, right? So I think having a proof of concept, against a minimal version, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't apply to every single service in your cluster, right? Even some of the Google sample environments or other things that are out there, you have a lot of flexibility here. I think just showing that you're doing the work and that you believe enough. By doing this work, building this demo, you then become a champion, and you can help build other champions. I think that is huge when you're bringing something to the table. Is building other champions and other teams, maybe working with another service owner, and they're having a challenge on their service, and the problem solves their problem and your problem, right? Bringing other people in is huge. So, of course, everything here, every organization is different. Everything is different based on your team and how you bring things to the table and your size, right? A 500 person company might be very different from a 4,000 person company. Results may vary. I want to mention the last thing here, trending technology without proper investigation, of course, will guarantee technical debt. It'll guarantee a lot more than that, actually. Performance problems, lack of confidence, other things in the chain, right? A lot of the time it can be way too much, and the complexity starts weighing down on the team, and a lot of other important things don't get looked at and worked on. So I think this is a problem, but I think that it's really easy to solve. I think this is where you have to zoom out. This is where people are going to ask questions, and rightfully so. What is the problem we're trying to solve? Or are we just adopting something because it seems like it's the greatest thing in the world and it's going to solve all our problems and make magical unicorns running through our software? So I think when you work as an engineer, you zoom in on the little nuances of the work that you are doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're there to be a good engineer and bring things to the table and optimize and enhance, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of the time, companies sometimes are on more of an innovative curve where the efficiency side isn't at focus as much, and rightfully so. They need to grow. They need to, make certain milestones and goals, and you have to consider that in everything you're doing. This is not easy because I'm an optimizer. I could just sit in a corner with Doritos and Mountain Dew and optimize things all day long that provide little tiny bits of value over time, but really don't matter to the overall mission. I used to be like that. Now I've had to zoom out and really think about what are we trying to do as a group here. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. MarioLoria.dev. You can learn everything about me. Reach out. I'd love to connect with many of you. This has been super fun. Thanks so much, Bart.
Oh, sorry. Very, very good. Excellent stuff, Mario. That was wonderful. Action packed. You really, really, really got a lot of stuff in there. And I think it's good because, we've had quite a few different talks, but, hearing previously from Kunal about scaling communities, thinking about, how do these conversations need to how do they need to happen inside my company? Because a lot of times folks are like, does it have to come from the CEO, or does it have to come from the devs, or where's the sources of pressure? But to get those conversations out in the open, and once again, is that as much as we talk about technical stuff and technological stuff, there's always a very thick human element in all of this. And I think you completely hit the nail on the head. And as someone who does have a very technical background, but also has extraordinary people skills, which is why you're a wonderful CNCF ambassador. I think, let's see, we got a question, but we only got like a couple of minutes. So question for Tim, previous speaker. Thanks, Tim. So what works best when wanting to get other people to be enthusiastic for your solution? And how do you manage expectations? Because there is always uncertainty with something new, right?
Yeah, that's a really difficult one. I think you have to build champions. So you have to listen first. I think this is step one. You have to listen to what challenges, what problems that your coworkers are going through. And then you have to appeal to them and saying, we will be able to, as a team, we will be able to solve your challenges, your problems, build these other solutions. If we can abstract this thing away or make it simpler, or provide, if we provide service mesh, we can solve for Canary, right? And so I think you have to build champions. You have to have lots of conversations. You have to be an amazing listener. You have to take notes. Like, it's not easy. Like, you have to think a little bit beyond the code, the terminal, and the magic of Kubernetes. You just have to think about building those relationships, because those relationships will pay dividends later on, and showing the value. To the second point, managing expectations is actually relatively easy. I like to synthesize my thoughts in a big, gigantic proposal and try to narrow it down and summarize, and then focus on the key points of what are we getting, what is the value we are getting out of this solution, nothing more, nothing less, right? And that value needs to map directly to the problems that we're trying to solve, whether it's in the next year or the next 3 years, right? So I think that's easier said than done. But if you're having trouble, write it out, write things out, and help people understand. By writing it out, you'll help yourself understand to make sure you fully have a good template in your head for what you should do. So.
I think it's perfect, and also relates directly to what you mentioned earlier. Is like, in order to zoom in, first you zoom out. So get those things down on paper first, get a little bit of distance and space, then you can run it by some people and ask some questions. Going back to what you said previously as well too about listening, is that I want to ask, how many folks in our chat have ever taken a class about listening? All right, I would like to know, and if they have, let me know what it is, because we're taught so frequently about how to speak and how to express ourselves, but I don't think we're taught enough about how to really listen, and that listening doesn't just mean being quiet while someone is talking. There's a much, it's
an art.
It's an art, and there are multiple levels. Anyway, we got to move on to the next speaker. We can continue the conversation in our YouTube chat. We can also continue the conversation in Slack. Mario, you are the man. I can't wait to get my vaccine and see you in person.
I can't wait either. Thank you so much. Right. Bye, everybody.
Much love. Cheers. All right, our next speaker. All right, we are fully operational. It is no coincidence